Overall, I want to say that the whole scheme that I'm laying out here is an end to capitalist, materialist hoarding and exploitation. That does not mean an end to capitalism. This is an evolution to a more conscious form of capitalism, a more ethical and more moral form of capitalism. Capitalism can't stay still. Like everything, it has to evolve. This is capitalism that now incorporates some socialistic elements, but it's still not socialism. I'm also considering a UBI. I like the idea of a UBI. We need to have a robust welfare system in addition to the UBI. I think the problem with the UBI is that if you're only proposing a UBI as a replacement for everything else that I said, that's a no-go. That doesn't work. You can't replace some of these things that I've said with cash. A lot of the things that I talked about here are way more valuable than cash. There's no amount of cash you can give a person to buy some of the things I talked about. No amount of cash will buy you clean water. No amount of cash will buy you a good education and eliminate corruption in government. No amount of cash is going to do this for you. So a UBI has to be in addition to various other social safety nets. Basically, what I'm aiming at here with all these policies is that we're trying to get society to a point where all of the basic needs of a human being are fully satisfied. Food, shelter, school, college, education, daycare, childcare, medical care, retirement, disability, your job, your career, all of that is basically made easy and effortless within society. Now, of course, this is a long-term goal. We can't do this in the next election cycle. I'm talking about a few hundred years into the future. This is what society is moving towards. We're also moving towards a more world government, more global cooperation. Of course, individual countries will still retain certain individual sovereignties and rights in the same way that states do within the United States. Individual states still have a lot of power within the states, but there will also be an overarching umbrella government. And the key to that is we want to get to a point where we have a global military force. One global military force where the individual forces of individual nations are abolished. And the reason we want to do this is because this will save us an enormous amount of waste within military. Right now, countries waste hundreds of billions of dollars every single year on useless weapons of mass destruction just for their own personal defense in case they get attacked or they want to attack somebody else. And this is so wasteful, and they need to do that, and they're all doing it because it's sort of an arms race. So the whole point is that if we could get everybody in the world to unionize and to start to agree that we don't need to attack each other anymore, to the point where we completely eliminate the possibility of war. And what we have then is we just have a global military force, which we still need in case, some bad actor erupts, but this will be a rare occurrence. In this way, we will be able to save a massive amount of resources for every country. And those resources, instead of being used on external wars and battles, will be able to be used internally to improve the infrastructure of the country and do all the other stuff that I've talked about. And in this way, we will actually end up cutting taxes. So in the short term, the stuff that I'm talking about will raise taxes on people, especially on the rich, but also even on the middle class, it'll raise taxes, to be realistic. But in the long term, what we'll ultimately get to is actually we're going to end up having lower taxes in total than we have right now in, let's say, 100 years after we have a unionized global government and a global military force, and we abolish the American military force and the Russian military force and so forth. And that is going to be a huge turning point in human history and human evolution. That will be as important of a turning point as was the development of individual nations out of city-states back during, the Roman times. During the Roman times, there were no countries. There was no Italy. There was no Germany. There were provinces, and really not even provinces, but cities, individual city-states. Those city-states unionized because they realized that it's much more efficient for us not to have every neighboring city fighting each other. You know how inefficient that is when every city has to build a fucking wall around itself? Extremely inefficient. Well, the same problem is happening right now at a national level, which is why global government is not only important and good and necessary, but it's absolutely inevitable. So those of you who are against globalism, this sort of anti-globalist trend that I see amongst libertarians and conservatives, this is a no-go. You're going to lose that battle. You can resist globalism all you want, but first of all, it's not the evil that you think it is. Really, the evil that you attribute to globalism is what I'm talking about with corruption. When we improve the corporate corruption problems and we make government more transparent, then globalism is not going to be the evil that you think that it is. And this will save us an enormous amount of resources if we're able to eliminate war between different nations in the same way that we have eliminated war between different cities. Have you noticed that different cities don't fight with each other? Like New York and Los Angeles don't fucking launch weapons and missiles at each other. California doesn't launch missiles against Texas. Why is that? Precisely because we've unionized at a higher order. And that's what all of reality is doing. It's creating unions at a higher order. This has been happening throughout all of human history. It's going to continue to happen. So don't resist it, embrace it, and reap the benefits.